Content warning. This episode includes discussions about suicide/suicidal thoughts and may be distressing to some listeners. Please proceed with caution.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Welcome to a safe space between friends where we get real about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. My name is Myra.
And I'm Nikki, and we're just really grateful to have you with us.
Yes, we are. So we're gonna just start this one with the word, with the scripture. And we have two. Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Ecclesiastes 4:9 and 10. Two are better than one because they have good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them. I want to start out mentioning a few names just to see if you recognize any of these people. And then we'll go from there. How you doing today, Miss Nikki?
You know, one moment at a time.
Moment at a time. Okay.
Holding on to gratitude.
Right, exactly. All right. So the first person is Naomi Judd. She's a country music icon. Then August Ames. She's a Canadian actress. Kurt Cobain. He's the lead singer of Nirvana. Heath Ledger is an actor. Margot Hemingway, that name takes us back. She's an actress. Phyllis Hyman, a singer, songwriter, and actress. River Phoenix. And finally, Stitch from the Ellen DeGeneres show. What do they all have in common?
Well, this is the only way here the listeners can't respond. They have all committed suicide. They're all victims of losing the battle to depression or whatever it was that was taunting them to end their own lives. When you mentioned Stitch, that one hits me hard. Be honest with you, I'm a big Stitch fan. I remember him from So You Think You Can Dance. As a dancer, he was one, and he had no formal training, so I was a big fan of his when he was on that show, and he won numerous times. And then going on the Ellen DeGeneres show, he was at the height of his career. I mean, he has had small children. I think that he comes off as such a bubbly person and such a just a light-hearted, light-spirited, like he was just light on his feet. I don't think anyone would have known. Definitely not as a fan, because I didn't know him personally. But I was shocked. I was shocked when we found out that he had committed suicide. And it was one of the more recent ones too.
Right, I was too, and it was because he just touched everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like I would get lost in his dance, and it just made me happy. And then he would do the videos with he and his wife dancing. They had such a beautiful family, and it just seems like he had everything along with the other people on the list. They were celebrities. They were successful. A lot of them were very beautiful people, and young, their age fairly young, had their whole life in front of them. And we look at them and think, man, they got it going on. They've made it. They've made it, right?
They made it, yeah.
They've made it. They're successful. And then we hear of the tragedy of their death, and we are just, I mean, I grieved for Stitch. Like, I cried for him. I cried for his wife. It was
Yeah.
like he was my friend, you know, and he
Yeah.
wasn't. Um,
Right.
but he just had the impact on people, and you look and you wonder why. Like, what is it? And why didn't
Mhm.
somebody know? How can somebody not know?
Yeah.
So that leads us to what our topic is for today, which is check on your strong friends.
Checking in. Yeah.
We will, if someone is hurting, we're so quick to call and say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? I'm sorry. Can I do anything for you? I'm here if you need me. Blah, blah, blah. We jump right on it. Somebody's grieving. They lost a parent, a spouse, child, friend, job. You know, we hear somebody lost their job. We'll jump right in. What can
Yeah.
we do for you? How can we support you? But then there are the strong people out there who struggle in silence,
Yeah.
who present as if they got it all together. They're always showing up for other people too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. In my experience, in my personal experience, it's usually the ones that are the doers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are always there doing for other people, but they suffer in silence.
Right.
I'm one of those people, to be honest with you. Like I can be there for everybody, and I could be going through my own stuff and show up for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that for the most part, like you're saying, the strong, self sufficient are the ones that aren't going to ask for help. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's probably the burden that they carry, is that they don't, for whatever reason, and we can sit here and speculate what are the reasons, right? Is it embarrassment? Is it the lack of skill to be able to ask for help because they are the doer? Is it the guilt that comes along with it? Is it just the I'm done? Do they not see another way out? You know, I think that I think it's a combination of things. And I think that for some people too, it comes down to personality, because some people may come off as like an extrovert, you know, but then at the same time, they may refuel by themselves. But if you're the type of person that refuels alone, but you're also in a fragile state, that isolation and fueling alone may not fuel you the way that you intended it to be. And it could just create more distance.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so how do we fill in that gap, I guess? How do we know when we need to check in? How do we know who we need to check on, I guess?
Good point. Good point. Um, for me, because I have a lot of sheroes in the field that we're in, and
Mhm.
I see them as very strong and successful women
Yes.
who have made it. They've done well with their careers. They have the PhDs. They have the television shows, the radio shows. They've written all the books, and they're helping so many other women and people. Those are the ones that I kind of reach out to because they're always working. They're always working. They're always busy. They're always smiling. They're
Mhm.
always pouring into so many other people. And so I am drawn to them. So I will reach out to them privately in a DM or on a text message. And I'm telling you, most of them are doing fine. They're
Yeah.
okay. But there's a handful of them. They're struggling.
Yeah.
And they're so grateful that I reached out. And we are not the best of friends, but I am just drawn to them. I feel this pull. And so I'm connected, and I reach out because of what I'm feeling, because I am considered a strong person.
Yeah.
And I know what it gets like, what it feels like when it gets real dark. Starts out
Exactly.
gray, then it gets really dark. And I'm gonna pull in. You're not gonna see me, you're not gonna hear from me. Right.
Right.
And so I have people in my life that recognize it, and they'll be
Mhm.
like, hey, what's up? So when I see that, I'm automatically like, okay, yeah, they're strong, but let me just check. It won't hurt to check. Phone call, text. How you doing? Need
Mm-hmm.
anything? Let's get real. Let's talk. And most of the time, if they need it, they will because they appreciate it. I also, because I love using social media, I'll just put a random post out there, like checking on all my strong friends, and
Mm-hmm.
or either I'll put out like one with a post with colors, like if you're doing great, you're this color, but if you're not so great and you need to talk, you're this color, and people respond to that, and I actually take out the time to talk to them because why would I
Yeah,
put it out?
I see you doing your check-ins. We're gonna say
Yes,
check-in. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, because it's important that we. I believe that I am my brother's keeper. I
Mm-hmm.
believe
Me
that.
too.
I believe that two are stronger than one. I believe that iron sharpens iron.
Amen.
I believe that God created us for a community, for fellowship, to check on each other. I
Well,
believe in
we're
all that.
sorry, I didn't mean to ever speak you. I believe in that as well. We're mammals for crying out loud. As Homo
Mhm,
sapiens, we're mammals. We're social creatures.
mhm,
We're meant. That's why we run in packs.
mhm,
That's why we have soulmates, or we have
mhm,
marriages and
mhm,
communities, if you will, um, because we're social creatures. Um, I've got those people in my life too, Myra. I remember in a dark time going silent. You know, on social media. I remember going silent for a couple of days on social media, and it wasn't so much that I intended to. It was just me falling into that gray, dark pit.
mhm.
And I remember, shout out to Briston Brickles. I remember Briston checking in and saying, "Hey, check in," and I mean now is what she said.
Okay,
And and she
I
wanted
love
to not
that.
hear it in text messages. She wanted to see my face.
Mhm,
Like she
mhm,
wanted to make sure, one, it was me.
mhm.
And two, it was because circumstances. And two, she wanted to she didn't want me to be able to like just gloss over it. You know how some of us strong people, we know what to say too. We got
Oh,
those
we've
quick little
mastered it.
comebacks.
We're mastered. We're masters at that.
We
Yeah.
are masters at that. Our whole world can be falling apart, and we'll be like too blessed to be stressed and keep rolling with like me yesterday. Boy, that was a hard day, and I'm just running around acting like my life's just going great. Um,
And the
but
sky
having
is falling. Yeah, the sky
and
was
Chicken Little
falling
was feeling it,
for real.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to have those check-ins. But I think it's also important where when someone is checking on us, that whether we're strong in that moment or not, that we're being honest with that person. And we don't, even if we don't want to get in the nitty gritty, because maybe that's not maybe whoever's checking on us, we don't want to burden them because we know their stuff too. But at the same time, just saying, hey, yeah, I am kind of going through something, but I appreciate you reaching out. That means a lot. Um, and you don't even have to give those details, but just still being honest with ourselves about where we are. But being willing to step out of that comfort zone and saying, hey, I've noticed a change in you.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, you've went from talking in this way to talking in this tone. Um, or, for those of us that know, um, or that have experienced suicide or have experienced depression, um, we typically can see a change in someone, whether it's hindsight's 2020 or not. There are typically little signs along the way, and isolation is number one.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, for sure. Um, and to say that we're gonna catch everyone that's having a bad moment or that may be suicidal and intervene and be superheroes, that's a lie. But what
correct.
we're saying is just be conscious enough to pay attention, I guess. Because sometimes you can see it,
Hmm.
sometimes you can really see it, or just be that type of friend. where you just, hey, I'm just checking in. I've had people reach out to me all the time because I've had so many deaths this year.
Yeah.
I've been at so many funerals. People just send me they give me a little nudge in my DM to not be intrusive or to be nosy,
Right.
to check. Hey, you good? Everything all right? I know you've
Here if
had a
you
lot of
need
losses.
me.
Sorry you're going through this. I'm here if you need me. I'm just a phone call away. And I was going to ask you, Nikki, how do you identify that need in someone? Like, what is it not that you look for it,
Yeah.
but you notice, I might need to check on her.
Well, one, again, just a change in behavior. So,
Mm.
like, I'll use you as an example. If you were to just go quiet on social media, I'm definitely checking on you. And if you're not answering your phone, then I'm checking with Mr. Fred. You
That's
know
right.
what I mean? Like, we're
That's
going to go
right.
down the chain.
That's right.
Miss Courtney's next. Like, we're just going to figure it out.
Mhm.
Um, for other people in my life, it just depends on the personality, right? Because not everybody's going to be so active on social media. That would be a thing for if you weren't answering me via text or on social media, that would be a red flag for me.
Mhm.
Other people is, we know some of the cues for risk of suicide. So we know when people just start talking about hopelessness, not having any hope, right? We know that's it. When we're looking at suicide assessments, that's one of the
Mhm.
first things we're assessing. What do they have to live for? Are they
Right.
giving away their property? Right? Are
Right.
they starting to give away things that are sentimental? Are they wanting to get their affairs in order? Right? These are some of those big things that as clinicians too, we're trained to kind of look for. But also not being afraid to just ask and
Mhm.
say, hey, have you had any thoughts of hurting yourself in the last 24 hours? What about
Mhm.
the last 7 days? Right? And listeners, just because you're asked that question doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a 1013 either.
That's
Because I've had clients say, "What you trying to do, Miss Nikki?" Um,
right. Right.
but
Exactly.
just being willing to ask the tough question, because I promise you, just like in grief, just because you bring it up doesn't mean it's going to make someone want to do it. If
Mhm.
someone's already experiencing it, asking's not going to hurt. Asking can only help.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
just being brave enough to be able
Mhm.
to just say, "Hey, I love you enough to be able to ask, have you had any thoughts of hurting yourself?
Mhm.
Where is your level of hopelessness on a scale of 0 to 10, right? And how does that measure different from yesterday?"
Right.
Um, giving someone a way to be able to just, because let's face it, when we're in that dark place, we don't even know how. Like, I've been in a dark spot before. And
Mhm.
as a clinician, I didn't even know how to verbalize my own darkness at that time, in that one moment, right? Um,
Mhm.
can I express it now? Sure.
Mhm.
But in that time frame. So when you've got someone, that's in that mode, they, even if they wanted help, sometimes they don't know how to ask for it, or they're
Right.
ashamed. A lot of times there's a lot of shame.
Right.
Um, and I'll tell you one thing that has stuck out to me the last couple of years, is when I hear people say that suicide is selfish. And I get why people say that. I
Mhm.
understand, because that we're the us survivors, the ones that are left holding the loved one's stuff, right? Or the families that are left
Mhm.
carrying the grief and the tragedy, like you
Mhm.
said. That's a really good word, tragedy. Um,
Mhm.
it's a burden like no other. There's grief that comes along with suicide that comes with no other grief, and it's
Mhm.
because there's more bartering. That shoulda, woulda, coulda. What could I have done different? The what ifs.
Mhm.
But one thing that I've learned is that strong people have weak moments, and
Mhm.
sometimes those weak moments are have long term effects.
They do.
Um,
They
and
do.
it's not coming from a selfish place, it's coming from a place of desperation.
Mhm.
Um, You know, I've shared with you, Miss Myra, one of my very dear friends committed suicide this past year. This person, most beautiful person, most beautiful smile, fantastic. If you were to see her life on paper, productive, successful, knew several degrees, had more than one job, had a beautiful family, was creating a beautiful family, um, but also fell into desperation. And I think that a lot of times too, we're not talking enough about um, like postpartum stuff, abuse cycles. You know, I think that there's a whole combination of things that we're not discussing as a whole, as a society, when it's surrounding suicide. And I think that it's not just a lack of resources, but it's a lack of identifying who needs the resources when they need them. Especially, and I love that you created this topic on the strong friend, because a strong friend is going to be the one that doesn't want to burden anybody else.
Exactly. Exactly. Always there to help, but never wants to feel like they're being a burden. And they're the first ones to show up. They're the first ones to call. They're the first ones to offer help.
Yep.
But then they don't know how to receive.
Correct.
You know? And with your friend, I remember you reached out to her. And this is what I want people to pay attention to too. Just because you reach out, once their mind is made up, they're probably going to go through with it, but that doesn't mean that you failed.
That's right.
Because they have their own will. And everybody that you reach out to, you're not going to quote unquote save or things like that. But the point is reaching out.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes when you're a strong person, you don't feel like you deserve it. You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be bigger than that. What are you doing?
Well, I think that's where the shame comes from too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Why are you depressed? You got what do you have to be depressed about? You have a beautiful family, Nikki. You got beautiful kids. They're healthy. They're strong. You're blessed with those babies. What?
Yeah. You're educated. You have a career. You know.
Your family is so. You have a beautiful village network of family. They work together to help you. And what you got to be depressed about?
Right.
Well, you know, I don't think we choose depression.
Right.
I want to share this. I had a client who years ago, long time ago, she actually attempted suicide. And thank the good Lord she was unsuccessful. But after she got out of treatment and she started back coming to see me and we got to talking about it, and I want y'all to remember this too. She said, Miss Myra, it's as if a switch had flipped. She said it was just that quick.
Yeah.
She said, I didn't plan this. She's like, but it was just as if somebody turned on the light switch. And I said, this is time. This is the day. Now, of course, you know, her friends tried to reach out to her, but her mind was made up.
Right.
But the point is they were there. And so because they were there, they were able to reach out to her parents and say, hey, might want to check on her. She was talking like this.
Right.
So you reaching out, I don't think is ever in vain. I don't think it's shame on you for reaching out, asking me this. No, you could actually save a life, or you could, it may not. But the point is checking on those people who seem like they have it all together. Because this girl, she was beautiful, aesthetically gorgeous model, with lots and lots of money and lots of success on the internet. But just like that, she was ready to go. Because she did have some other issues, you know, or she would have been in therapy.
Sure.
But because her friends were there and they were like, okay, we need to check on her. We're gonna make sure she gets home. And she didn't want that. And but they were able to call, her family. And so they were able to get to her before she expired. You know what I'm saying?
Thank God for that, because it can
Yeah,
happen, so depending on the lethality, I mean, it can happen very quickly,
it could.
and it can, be irreversible.
Mhm.
Um, the some of what you were just saying kind of brings up for me is that, we know emotions, and I say this all the time. I know my clients get tired of hearing it too, and our podcast listeners are going to get tired of hearing me say it, but emotions are temporary. Being happy is temporary. Being mad is temporary. All of these emotions that we feel are structures in our brains, right?
Yeah.
That help us maneuver through life. But when we're experiencing something like suicidal ideations, those can be temporary too. But when we're in that moment, it can get intense. That switch is real, which is why it's important to just simply ask and just rip that band-aid off. And whether you're mad at me afterwards or not, fine, because you're that mad. I'd rather you be mad at me and living than me not ask. Right. And I'll tell people
Yeah.
that all the time.
Yeah.
You can be mad at me because you'll get over being mad.
Yes.
um, and I'll get over you being mad,
Uh-huh.
or your feelings being hurt or whatever.
Right.
And it
Right.
doesn't have to come with judgment, but sometimes it does, especially if someone really is feeling suicidal. A
Yeah.
lot of judgment. They're already feeling judgment, which is
Right.
a lot of times while they're in the state that they're in.
Right.
But just knowing that, just being there for them in that moment, that moment is also temporary. Most people that survive suicide attempts will come back and say, I'm so grateful I did, or I'm so grateful they found me, or I'm so grateful, you know, we know just living, in the field that we're in, right? We've had clients that have come back and be like, I can't believe I did that. And then they have all this guilt
Mhm.
that they have to process afterwards because they didn't really want to die. They just felt hopeless.
Mhm.
Um, and
Mhm.
helpless. Helpless is
Right.
the other word I was trying to
Right.
find too. Like they
Right.
couldn't find an out. They didn't know which way was up.
Right.
Right.
And one thing I've learned to working with people who have been suicidal is the one thing they have in common is they'll say, Miss Meyer, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. I just want the pain to stop.
I'm just tired. I hear
I
that a
just
lot too. I'm just,
the
yeah,
pain to stop.
yeah,
Can I get off for a minute? And if they have a lot going on and it's just back to back to back tragedies,
right.
you know, when is it going to stop? When is it going to end? And I remember listening to a guy who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. And the
Yes.
one thing he said, I waited. He said, I told God, if one person walks up and asks me how I'm doing, I won't do it. I won't jump.
He
He was
was
waiting on
bartering with God.
one person. And so
Wow.
after he said that, a lady walked up on the bridge because people go up there, take pictures and stuff.
Right.
And so and just to look over or whatever. And she walked up and he said, okay, this is my out. She said, excuse me, sir. He said, yes. She said, will you take a picture of me and my family? He was like, see, I knew it. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. And he proceeded to jump. And he said, halfway down, he said, God, I don't want to die. I don't want to do this.
Wow.
And somehow survived. Um, I was blown away by that. But just hearing someone that was actually in that mental state say,
Hmm.
I don't really want to die.
Right.
And if one person, how about you being that one person? How about you
Yes.
being that one person, listeners, to provide a safe space for someone to say, I'm not doing good. I'm not feeling good. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm
And
having a
without
hard
the
time.
pressure, sorry, and without the pressure of
Yeah,
having to give them advice, right? When
exactly.
someone's in that moment, we don't have to offer them anything but space. We don't have to tell them what they should do with their feelings. We don't have to tell them how they should be feeling better. Just saying, I hear you, I see you, I'm with you. And what do you need from me? Do you need support right now, or do you need suggestions? I'll tell people real quick, like, do you need me to do something for you, or do you need me to just share space with you? Because sometimes offering a suggestion could come off as a judgment, which could just add to that hopelessness, right? Like,
and I don't think in those moments they really want a therapist.
no, they probably not.
They don't want any advice.
Right.
They need your ear.
Yeah.
And your time and your presence.
Exactly.
And for your lips to be quiet.
I know in one of my darkest moments, I'll tell you, I've got an aunt and an uncle, Lord bless them. At my weakest moments, the last couple of years, they allowed me to be who I needed to be when I was. And they saw me at a really dark place where, not that I was suicidal, but that I just I didn't know what, I was afraid to make another decision, but they never once told me what I should do or what I should feel. It was a matter of saying, what is the healthiest for you right now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what is in this moment, what you need to eat, you need to sleep, right? And you need to play with your kids. And we got back to fundamentals. And that was the only expectations that was put on me. And I remember that alone allowed me to be able to regain my strength.
Right.
Like just regain and recoup what I needed to do next.
Right.
So sometimes it's just letting somebody, just acknowledging that they're going through something. And it's like, hey, what you're doing, what you're going through is heavy. It sucks. You don't deserve it. And we're just here for you.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. And you're going to get through this, and we're going to get through it together. You're not going to have to do it alone.
Yes. Sometimes when I'm not suicidal or anything like that, but I'm having one of those days.
Yeah.
My husband said, "What can I do for you?" I was like, and I'll say to him, just be present. I don't need an answer. I don't need a solution. I don't need you to fix it. Just stay right here with me. And we'll be good.
Sometimes you just need a hug. I'll never forget. Like, look, my uncles, all of them, they're the best huggers. I crawl up under them and just give me a big old hug. And sometimes that's all you need. Yeah, sometimes you just need that presence, like you said. Like, I don't need a solution. I just need the presence. Because think about having just a hard day at work. Listeners, all of you can experience a hard day at work when you come home and you can't really talk about it, right? That's kind of how depression is. Not everybody can talk about it.
Right.
But people still hold space for you in that moment. You're hopefully you got somebody in your life that allows you to just be in that moment, in whatever it is that you're feeling. And make sure that you've got your comfort food or your favorite blanket or your TV show, the Y&R, or whatever it is that helps you get through the moment.
That's right. All right. All right. So remember, check on your strong friends. It's just a text, phone call, a note, and just wait. You never know how you'll change their lives, because I've had my friend Nikki step in at the right time, not even knowing what was happening, what was going on, but being sensitive enough to check on me. I remember this, Nikki. I didn't have enough money for my daughter's wedding. And I was freaking out. I was so upset. I was disappointed in myself. I was so hurt. I was like, you should have planned this. She deserves the best. I was just so negative. Those were all I had were negative thoughts about me. What a failure I was. Aww. And so I don't know if you remember this or not, but you came in my office at drug court, and I was just sitting there staring into space, and you were just like, what's going on? I was like, Nikki, I don't have enough money. I'm not gonna be able to do it. And you were like, I understand that, but you will, because God's gonna always come through.
Yeah.
And that's all you said. You didn't try to be super spiritual. Why didn't you pray about it? You didn't judge me for not planning for it. Nothing. You just was like, but you will, because God's gonna make sure of it. And that was it. And you just sat there in my office with me.
I do remember that, Mar.
Remember?
I do.
Yeah. And so just that reassurance from somebody that believes like I do, of faith, and just you being present and not, because you could have taken a U-turn when you saw I was feeling depressed, like, oh well, she's having a bad day, but you didn't. You sat down and you stayed with me.
Aw.
You know,
And we'll continue to do so, Miss Myra.
and that meant a lot. Thank you,
Well,
Nikki.
and thank you. And with that being said, right back at you, sis, because just last night you held space for me. So, and I know you was wore out, but you still made time and held that space for me to be able to kind of get through what I was needing to process, and didn't even know I needed to really process it. I thought I was just, folding laundry. But being able to just share and talk, and you not judging me when I get my little cycles, of my anxiety and my really more PTSD is what it was, that was triggered. But for you to be able to just not judge me, but still also be realistic with me and tell me how I needed to, feel it, but not dwell, so I can still manage.
Right.
So I appreciate you always being honest and real with me while also supporting me and loving me through it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's
All
what
right,
a true friend is, people.
Absolutely. That's it. That's it for tonight. We good, Nikki?
I'm good.
Okay.
You good?
I'm great. I'm actually great. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to this podcast, and for your support, and just for you being present with us, just for you making a safe space for us to share and to hopefully pour into the lives of someone who really needs this. And yeah, I'm just grateful for you. I'm grateful for all of you who are listening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just want to also just kind of throw out there too, since we are talking about it today, and just remember that if you need a safe space, you can access 24/7, 365 days via call or text the 988, which is the suicide hotline, 988. And again, you could text it, you can call it, and there's going to be an operator on the other end. So
Very
if you
good.
feel like you or a friend or a loved one, don't, and there's wellness checks. If you don't have to necessarily call 988. There's other ways of getting wellness checks as well for different jurisdictions. So, but 988 is a source that's nationwide.
Thank you, Nikki. We needed to say that. Thank you. That's
Yes,
really,
ma'am.
really important. All right. Until next time, be a safe space for someone. Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Thanks for
Take care.
listening.
Bye.